I want to start off by mentioning the NCAA tournament happening this week. The ball tips this Thursday, and as you can see, I've got my bracket filled out. And
Oh, look at you.
I want you to notice who that I have winning it
Yes.
all.
Rick Pitino is going to be very happy.
Yes, and I really didn't just put that because you were coming on the show. I really do think that because of Patino's coaching and because of his ability to get his players to play at an effective level when it matters, I really do think that he's going to beat Florida in the Elite Eight and he's going to go to the Final Four, beat Auburn, and win the championship.
I love it. I love it. From your lips to God's ears.
So I'm curious, Tom, where do you have Rick Pitino going in the tournament? How far do you have him making it?
I don't have my bracket here in front of me, Adam, but I have the exact same path that you do. The Johnnies are going to win it all this year. It's destiny.
Absolutely. And what a coincidence that this is the year that Vice TV decided to show this documentary, the year that Patino is redeemed and gets to be a three-time champion. And I think that that just solidifies him as he's already one of the greatest to ever do it, but it's hard for anybody to argue against a three-time winner, a
Yeah,
three-time winner.
that's a really good analogy that you made there. And yeah, timing is everything, right, in life. And it just seems to have the stars have aligned here for us and for our documentary and for the run that St. John's is on. It's nice to be going in parallel paths here.
And I'm going to be honest with you. I think that Patino finds this documentary and all these cameras as probably motivation to win it all.
You might be right. You might be right. But I believe he really doesn't care about the cameras at all. He is so focused in and locked in on that team and what he's doing. So most times he doesn't even realize that we're around until he watches the show and he says, "Oh my gosh, you guys were there to capture that moment or that moment." So yeah, I think he's locked in on basketball and not television.
Well, Red Storm Rising Rick Pitino, it focuses on the legendary Rick Pitino. So what inspired you to focus on Rick Pitino for this documentary?
So, if you were to cast a college basketball coach in a Hollywood movie about a team making a run towards the NCAA, I think you would cast Rick Pitino. He is that type of character that is charismatic and he pops on the screen, and everything he says, most people are hanging on the edge of their seat, not knowing what is coming out of his mouth next. But usually it's inspirational, it's motivational, and it's must watch TV. So you combine all those factors together and you have a winning formula for any television show.
And what do you hope that the viewers will take away from this documentary after they complete it?
Yeah, what I hope they see is there is not a person on this planet who works harder at his craft than Rick Pitino. And we had no idea going into this what to expect, but this man goes harder than anyone I've ever come across in any business acumen. He eats, sleeps, drinks, breathes, talks about his profession. And it's evident in watching his preparation, in watching his execution, and then watching his communication with his teammate, with his players and his team members.
So you've got some time to spend with Rick Pitino over the last couple of months, and there was a lot of things you probably already knew about him just by being a viewer watching his craft. But what was the most surprising or maybe the most unexpected discovery that you made while working with Rick Pitino over the last few months?
So I was surprised at how involved he gets with his players
Mhm.
as far as caring about them, both on the court and off the court. There's a kid on the team this year, Sadiku. And if you watch the series, we profiled Deku, as they all call him, in one of the episodes. And Deku on camera says that Rick has become like a second father to him. And Rick has said the same thing about Deku. There's pictures of him and Deku at a Yankees game together in the off season, out to dinner together. So it was surprising to me that he cared that much about these kids and not just as basketball players, but also as human beings. And so, when I peel all of the layers back of Rick Pitino, I guess I shouldn't be surprised because the more and more I learn about this guy and see the way he operates on a daily basis, it really is evident how much he cares.
Well, you can probably see I'm wearing a University of Kentucky shirt. That's my team. I live in Lexington. That's where this show was broadcasted. Let me tell you something, Tom. At one point in time, Rick Pitino was the jewel of this state. People in this state thought he could walk on water. I mean, he couldn't even pull up to a gas station without getting bombarded by fans. I mean, people would pick his grass in his yard just to have a piece of Pitino's home next to them. So people love Rick Pitino. But when he left Kentucky, he went to Louisville. It really irritated a lot of Kentucky fans because of the hatred that this state has for the basketball program up in Louisville. And a lot of people have different opinions about Rick Pitino. They know he's a great coach, but he's had some scandal attached to his name. So, how did you navigate the challenge of telling his story in a way that feels fair and balanced, given his public reputation?
Yeah, if you watch the documentary, I think it's a completely fair and balanced look at his career. And I think that the past is the past, and time heals all wounds,
Oh, yeah.
as evidence with his return to Kentucky this year, when he went back and celebrated Mark Pope being the head coach of the Wildcats. The reception that I saw sent chills through my bones watching it from afar. And he said it was one of the greatest nights of his life going back there to Kentucky and having that reception that he got. So, we're all about, as documentarians, a fair and balanced approach, which I think we do in this film if you watch it thoroughly. Um, but also, that's in the past. And we're now focused with this show on what lies ahead here in March, which seems to be really, really exciting.
And it's interesting that you say time heals all wounds because it seriously does. Because a few years ago, the last time that we saw Rick Pitino at Rupp Arena, he left the game after we defeated him and he threw up his middle finger allegedly to the crowd. And it was kind of just like a salute saying his final goodbye. And it's just interesting. Flash forward 5, 6 years later, he is now brought back like the prodigal son into this state. People love him again. So there is some truth. There's a lot of truth to what you just said. Now, when you filmed this documentary, did you find anything about it difficult to film, or, was there any problems that you had getting access, or was Patino just like, you know what? You're here. It's wide open. You can record whatever you want. Did you find any challenges with getting the content that you wanted to put on this documentary?
So, with any project that you're working on, of course, there's going to be production challenges along the way. And we have faced our fair share of them throughout the process of this journey. However, what trumps everything is the trust factor that's established between the production crew and the project that you're working on. And I think we have gotten in lockstep with not only Rick, but the St. John's University basketball team community, that we know where we can skate and where might not be a good idea to skate. So there's a fine balance there that you have to find with any project that you work on, whether you're doing a political documentary, whether you're doing a sports documentary, whether you're doing a religious documentary. You just have to find that balance and go back to what I started with, that trust factor. If Rick trusts me and I trust Rick, we're going to have a heck of a project on our hands here.
So, sports documentaries, I feel like, have come more increasingly popular over time. The Last Dance, I feel like, really brought back people's interest in long, in-depth stories of certain sports figures and certain coaches, which, by the way, congratulations on defeating The Last Dance at the Emmys. That was so incredible because that documentary was so good, and the fact that you won over it just speaks volumes of your work. So I just want to say really quick, congratulations on that.
Well, thank you for that accolade. I have to dish that off to the director, Matt Halley, who also directed Basketball or Nothing and is now directing Pitino Red Storm Rising. So there's a winning formula that we got going on here. And it's funny that you bring up Last Dance, Adam, because if you really dissect this and if you geek out on filmmaking and documentaries, there is a little bit of Last Dance in what we're doing here with Pitino Red Storm Rising.
Yes,
The only difference is that it's in real time. Like
yes.
this is happening in real time, whereas Michael Jordan's documentary, look back at everything. This is taking a look back and also tracking what is happening as St. John's runs towards this March Madness.
Now, going forward, is there any particular coach or player or story in sports that you have an interest in covering in the future?
Absolutely.
Can you share?
I want to run it back with Rick Pitino again.
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, I would love to put Patino again as the winner for next year's tournament. So yes, more Patino, maybe more of his time at Kentucky would be something. Because I tell you, when you get the Big Blue Nation behind a project, it can do nothing but increase the viewership.
I've
Um,
actually heard that. I've heard that.
it's amazing. You can put out any type of show covering UK content, and it just gets numbers like you would never believe. And it's
Yeah.
just the fanaticism of this state with basketball. We don't have a pro team. We're not all in on football, but we are so all in on basketball. And it has been a tradition ingrained in us living here for so many years. And I think that's partly why fans just grasp onto everything they can get when UK content is being discussed, even if it's their former coach, Rick Pitino. So let me ask you, what do you think Rick Pitino's greatest contribution to the game of basketball is?
That's a good question. I would say his commitment to his profession. This guy doesn't go out there and roll out basketballs and tell people to shoot around. He comes with a plan every day that's going to not only improve his team, but also improve the lives of the players he's coaching.
Yes, and I remember watching a interview that Rick Pitino did, and he said that he is done with coaching. It was right after being fired from Louisville. He said he don't think he'll ever coach again. I kind of rolled my eyes at that, not just because I thought he was lying. I was just like, we all go through that. When we get defeated, when we feel deflated, we want to quit. So I knew he would get back on the saddle, he would get back on the horse, and I am so glad he did. College basketball is so much better with Rick Pitino in it. And his legacy, if you could describe his legacy in just maybe a sentence, what would it be? Would it just be his persistence in the game of basketball?
I think his legacy is still being written, but it's the man's ability to live in the present and adapt to what's going on. And so I think the longevity of his coaching career is going to be his legacy because you marry that with the wins, and there is no one on this planet that you can put in the same category as this guy. The amount of time he's been coaching, the number of wins he's had, and the amount of players' lives that he's impacted. So that might be a little bit more than one sentence, but that's my opinion.
It's hard to really describe Rick Pitino in one sentence. Hence why you are coming up with a documentary of several episodes. Now, one thing I noticed about this documentary, and maybe you can clarify for me, you said it was in real time, and I think that's brilliant. It makes it more interesting because you really don't know what's going to happen next. Now, what would have happened if Rick Pitino didn't make the tournament, or if Rick Pitino loses the first round? Is Vice adding more episodes to your project the more successful that he becomes this season?
We are. So we've added an additional hour episode that's going to chronicle the run now in March. Our original plan was to shut down cameras after Selection Sunday. So we would follow the St. John's basketball team all the way through the season. Selection Sunday would be our final act, fade to black, and it's a wrap on the season. We quickly realized that the viewer wasn't going to be fulfilled if we shut down the cameras on Selection Sunday based upon what they have in store for them coming up here. So they added an additional episode that's going to air towards the end of the month, early April now.
Rick Pitino said in the documentary, he says that Kentucky is the Roman Empire of college basketball. He loves his time at Kentucky. He knows how special this place is. I think eventually, as time moves on, he will appreciate his time at Louisville. It's going to take more time. He did win a championship there, but I really do. And he said in the documentary, talking about St. John's, he said, I haven't had time to hug this place yet. But I feel like if Rick Pitino wins a national championship with St. John, I would say it is safe to say that that will be the most special place he has ever coached in his career because of all the adversity that he had faced. It solidifies his name as a iconic, legendary coach, even though I still think he is without the win. But this solidifies, so you can't argue against a three-time coach. But do you think if he wins a national championship, St. John will be maybe trump his favorite place he's ever coached? I know it's hard to speak for him, but in your opinion, what do you think?
I do. And for multiple reasons. On our episode that aired last night, he said he was saving the best for last. Gus Johnson asked him how it felt now to win the Big East championship, and he had a good line where Rick had a good line where he said, I'm saving the best for last. So that's one element. The other, I think, important factor to consider if St. John's does win a national championship is that he's going to win it in his hometown, coaching in his hometown. It's where he grew up. He grew up blocks away from Madison Square Garden. So there's something special about being able to dial back into your childhood and where you were raised and all the family and all the friends that you have in that community, and to be able to bring the Holy Grail back to your hometown. I think that's going to really resonate with Rick.
Absolutely. He'll definitely be giving a bear hug to that place if he wins a championship with them. And when you win a national championship, job offers start to pour in, even at his age. And I hate how people put one person's foot in the grave when they turn 70 years old. It's like they think their life is over. But Rick Pitino is such an inspiration because he is showing the world that, hey, even at my age, I can still be on top of the mountain. So and I'm going to go ahead and say it, once he wins the national championship this year, jobs are going to start being offered to him even at his age. Do you think that with the right job offer, he would leave St. John and go coach another school? Or do you think he would just be satisfied staying in New York at that school?
I don't think he'll ever be satisfied, but I do think he would find a home there and say, okay, this is where I'm going to end my career coaching this team, and try to run it back, try to do it again next year, try to get better players, challenging him with a new team. So I, you never say never, but I would be hard pressed to think that he's going to leave this place now that he's really, really jumped in full force. And like you said, with what we had in the show where he said, I haven't had a chance to hug this place. Well, he'll certainly get a chance to hug it and then some, because the New York City lore will grow, and everything around him will grow, and that glow will just get brighter and brighter and brighter as he goes. So,
And he's the king of New York. I mean, he used to be the coach for the New York Knicks, but he belongs in college basketball. That's his forte, and it's only fitting that he's coaching one of the best colleges in New York City. So I am so excited. So it is safe to say all of us fans of this documentary are going to be able, if they keep winning in the tournament, we're going to be able to follow this complete run to the end.
you will. You'll definitely be able to follow the complete run. We just had our show last night that showed Selection Sunday, showed them being pitted up against Omaha in the first round up there in Providence, Rhode Island. So hopefully it's a win against Omaha and then a win against either Kansas or Arkansas and then off to the Sweet 16.
I'm so excited.
And we'll be
Well,
there to follow it.
I was going to say, are you going?
Oh, we'll be there to follow every step of the way.
Well, when you talk to Rick Pitino, tell him that Adam Banks says he still wants him at Kentucky, even if he wins a national championship. I love Mark Pope, but hey, Rick Pitino is my dude.
I will definitely share that with him. And congrats to you, Adam, on the award-winning show. That is just awesome news.
Hey, Tom, thank you so much. Coming from somebody like you, that means a lot. And it's people like you that makes this show as big as it is because it's people who are willing to come on and talk to just an old hillbilly like me from Kentucky. It truly means a lot. And I want to thank you so much for taking out your time. I know you are so busy. You've probably got 10 different interviews lined up, ESPN being one of them. So I just want to say thank you for taking the time out to do this little show off the cuff with Adam Banks.
My pleasure. I really enjoyed the conversation with you.